Tonight on News at 9, President's State Visit. President Maithripala Sirisena arrives in Canberra, Australia to kick off a 3-day state visit.
First at 9, this is Derana 24/7.
Also making headlines tonight, Sri Lankan exports. Prime Minister assures the government will transform the country into an export-led economy. Protest in Colombo. Another anti-Saitam protest dispersed by the police using tear gas and water cannons. Today in Parliament, Law and Order Minister says police failed to keep law and order in extremism and separatism related issues. In international news, Britain under attack. UK terrorism threat level raised to critical. Good evening, live across Sri Lanka. This is Derana 24/7. I'm Mahesh Johnny. Tonight we begin in Australia, where we find President Maithripala Sirisena, who began his 3-day state visit to Australia this morning, accompanied by the Sri Lankan delegation. This is the first time a Sri Lankan head of state has made an official visit to Australia, and comes as both countries celebrate the 70th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations this year.
Upon his arrival at Canberra Airport, President Maithripala Sirisena was welcomed by a delegation led by Australian Education Minister, Senator Simon Birmingham. The President is accompanied by Minister of Tourism Development and Christian Religious Affairs, John Amarthunga, Deputy Foreign Minister Dr. Harsha De Silva, Deputy Minister of Power and Renewable Energy, Ajit P. Pereira, and Parliamentarian Harshana Rajakarna. The President's first stop was the National Arboretum in Canberra, where he planted a mahogany sapling, marking his first visit to Australia as President of Sri Lanka. In attendance were Attorney General of Canberra, Gordon Ramsay, and Director of the National Arboretum, Scott Sadler. President Sirisena later inspected the Food Technology Laboratory of the National University of Australia, which was established with the assistance of the Commonwealth. The President also paid a visit to one of Australia's largest solar farms in Canberra. Thereafter, the President engaged in religious activities at the Kamba Buddhist Temple and later visited the High Commission of Sri Lanka for a function in his honour and to meet with the Sri Lankan expatriate community. Tomorrow, President Maithripala Sirisena will meet Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull at the Parliament House in Canberra. Issuing a communiqué yesterday, Turnbull said that the deep, enduring friendship between the two countries is anchored in shared history as Commonwealth countries and through shared interests as Indian Ocean nations. He added that President Sirisena's visit will be an opportunity to advance key areas of bilateral cooperation, including education, defense, science and technology, economic development, medical research, and the fight against people smuggling.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe assures that the government has shouldered the task of transforming the country's economy into an export economy within the next few years. The Prime Minister expressed these ideas at a function held in Kadawatha today.
We have to decide whether we continue obtaining loans and allow the country to be destroyed, or go forward with an economy that has the capacity to settle loans. We have taken that responsibility. Now, doors of the EU market are open to us with the GSP Plus renewal. With an economic revolution, we can be an export economy. If we go forward together for 3 to 4 years, we will reach our target. We have asked the private sector to be our partners in creating employment opportunities for the youth. We have begun a new era. We have dialogue with a number of countries like China, Japan and India. We have already received investments to kick off the Hambantota port, to set up 2 power plants at Kerawalapitia and to develop the Trincomalee city. This is only the beginning. We can't expect solutions out of nowhere. We will work and produce results.
Yet another anti-Saitam protest disrupted Colombo today as the parents and students of state medical faculties attempted to march towards the presidential secretariat. Police, however, used tear gas and water cannons to disperse the demonstrators. The protest was instigated against police action on the recent anti-Saitam protest by the Inter-University Students' Federation.
On the 17th of March, the Inter-University Students' Federation and the Medical Faculty Student Action Committee organized a protest march in Colombo demanding the abolition of Saitam. The march was dispersed by the police using tear gas. Today's protest march was organized by the Association of Parents and Students of State Medical Faculties against the police action taken on the 17th. The march commenced from the Fort Railway Station and was later seen moving towards the Presidential Secretariat via Lotus Road. Barricades were used to shut down Lotus Road on account of the protest. Police were seen making attempts to thwart the marching protesters. However, as protesters continued to march towards the Presidential Secretariat, police resorted to water cannons in an effort to disperse them. A photojournalist was injured in the incident. As protesters persisted in their attempts to reach the Presidential Secretariat, police used tear gas.
We got together after tolerating as much as we could. We can't tolerate seeing our children getting beaten up anymore. This is very unfair and inhuman. On the 17th of this month, they converged on our children from 3 sides in the Vihara Mahadevi Park and used poisonous tear gas against them. We raised our voices in every district over this issue. We gathered all parties for this purpose. We asked that Saitam be abolished immediately.
Protesters were then seen holding a rally at the location. Members of the Medical Faculty Student Action Committee also participated in the rally.
We are demanding that the government abolish Saitam. There's no other solution to this issue. If you are not ready to do so, then these protests will only escalate.
The protest march eventually broke up at 4 p.m. today.
Meanwhile, the National Movement to Protect the Rights of War Heroes also organized a protest march in Colombo today. Several of the association's representatives were allowed to enter the Presidential Secretariat and the Defence Ministry to discuss pensions.
The National Movement to Protect the Rights of War Heroes organized the protest march demanding the implementation of the proposed pension scheme for soldiers who had not completed the mandatory 12 years of service. The protesters marched from Kolpiti Junction towards the Presidential Secretariat. Seven members of the organization were allowed to enter the Presidential Secretariat to discuss the issue. Representatives of the association also spoke to officers of the Ministry of Defence about the issue.
We couldn't talk to the officials responsible for this matter. The Additional Defence Secretary has left the country. We had to speak to an official who has no knowledge on the matter. We did not get a clear answer about the proposed pension scheme. We are coming back to Colombo on the 28th of June.
Moving on to other local stories, an 18-hour interruption to water supply will be in effect from 10 p.m. tonight in several areas of Colombo. The National Water Supply and Drainage Board stated that supply interruption will be in effect until 4 p.m. tomorrow.
Accordingly, water supply will be interrupted to the Colombo 2, 3, 8 and 10 areas. Speaking to Derana, chairman of the National Water Supply and Drainage Board, said that the interruption is due to an emergency repair of a main supply pipeline.
There will be 18-hour water interruption, which will mostly affect Colpiti, Slave Island and Union Place. Also, there will be supply but with low pressure to areas like Tibirigasaya, Havelock Road, Borel and Maradana.
Minister of Law and Order Saga Ratnayaka says that police had failed to implement the law pertaining to religious extremism and separatist incidents. Minister of Law and Order made these remarks at the Parliament today, replying to a question raised by leader of JVP Anura Kumara Disanayaka.
During the past few days, there have been many reports regarding vandalism of property for the sake of religious extremism and separatism. However, the government doesn't seem to take action against any of these things. For example, the government had failed to bring solutions to incidents such as Wilpat, the deforestation, the land problem, archaeological sites being destroyed in the eastern province, and vandalism-related incidents with regard to business places and religious institutes of the Muslim community. Investigations are underway on these incidents, and the police had requested another few days to hand over the information to me. When observing this particular issue, we see that there is a failure in implementing the law. The police is responsible for implementing the law in these areas. This situation has been created due to avoiding proper action at the right time. The police should not concern themselves with any of the social barriers, such as religion or political ideologies, when implementing the law. They shouldn't concern themselves at all with these matters.
As the Department of Meteorology warns of the advent of the southwest monsoon, 80 people are reported to be affected by floods in Kahawatha Palmadulla following heavy rains last night. Meanwhile, 19 boats went missing in the Sea of Batticaloa. The Sri Lanka Navy confirmed to Derana that the 67 fishermen on board have successfully been rescued.
Heavy rainfall was experienced in Galle, Mathura, Kaluthara and some other districts in the country with the onset of the southwest monsoon last night. The spokesperson of Sri Lanka Navy, Lieutenant Commander Chamindawala Kuluge, talking to Derana, said that the 67 fishermen who went missing on 19 boats were all rescued unharmed with the use of Dora vessels. Meanwhile, 80 people are reported to be affected by the floods and 7 houses are inundated with water in Kahawatha Palmadulla and other areas. The Assistant Director of the Disaster Management Centre, Pradeep Kodipilli, said that heavy rains can be expected in many areas of the country tonight. He further stated that the Disaster Management Centre is prepared for any flood situations or other disasters that may be caused by the weather conditions.
Let's take you back to Parliament. The need for proper policies preventing hate speech and taking action against contempt of court was discussed in Parliament today.
Our effort to introduce as a penal offence hate crimes in this country through the penal code suffered some setback since some of the members in this house took exception to the fact hate speech as a crime to be introduced through the penal code. Now this issue suffered some setback because some of the human rights lobby members and some of our parliamentarians too took up some objections regarding the wording of the definition of this crime, since it had totally been imported from the existing Prevention of Terrorism Act. Together with that, I think the Honourable Minister, who is also eminent President's Counsel, will understand the need to enact a Contempt of Court Act, which may also assist proper administration of justice in this country. Respect for courts and respect for judges sometimes is taken to some absurd levels and it is being abused. And to prevent abuse of the contempt of law jurisdiction is availed of by the courts in this country. It may be better for us to set the policy correctly.
I just want to make a small clarification, Mr. Chairman. Honourable Minister Rauf Hakim reminded about the amendment we proposed on this hate speech. In fact, that the hate speech is an offense in terms of the Penal Code section 291A. There are many provisions. 291A says whoever with the deliberate intention of wounding the religious feelings of any person utters any word or makes any sound in the hearing of that person or makes any gesture in the sight of that person or places any object in the sight of that person shall be punished with imprisonment of either description for a term which may extend to 1 year or with fine or with both. Now further it says 291B, whoever with the deliberate and malicious intention of outraging the religious feeling of any class of persons, and it goes on. We wanted to make a further amendment in consonant with the ICCPR rules, and in fact that amendment was passed in the cabinet. It was presented to the parliament, and later some of the parties opposed to it, especially my recollection is TNA, went to the Supreme Court challenging this amendment. As a result that we compromised it, that since they were satisfied that existing provisions is sufficient to implement the law, then we withdrew that amendment. I also of the view that it is not really an issue of any lacking of the laws. It is a matter of implementation. About the sentencing policy, and that there are 3 areas where that we are seriously considering to have a policy on the sentencing policy. The other one is the bail policy, and also there has to be some procedure for the contempt of court.
Minister of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources Development Mahinda Amaravira says that local government elections will be held within 3 months. Speaking at a media briefing held at the Sri Lanka Freedom Party head office in Colombo today, Minister Amaravira went on to say that the SLFP has decided to take tough action against those violating party discipline.
At the previous cabinet meeting, the cabinet paper for local government was finalized. It will be brought to the parliament soon and elections will be held in the near future. We also think that is the best time to hold local government elections. The Central Committee of the party has decided to take disciplinary actions against those who act against the ethics of the party. We don't want to remove anyone from the party. We want to unite everyone.
Meanwhile, State Minister of Finance Lakshman Yapa Abewardena commented on future course of action beyond the cabinet reshuffle.
There are 2 more steps to be taken. The President clarified that changes will be made to the subject areas of the ministries. There will also be a change in heads of some institutes and secretaries of some ministries in the future for this government to function strongly. We believe that we will be able to hold an election within 3 months.
In other local stories, the newly appointed Minister of Skills Development and Vocational Training, Chandima Veerakodi, says that he will create 1 million employment opportunities for the youth. Having earlier been the Minister of Petroleum Industries Development, Veerakodi took charge of his new portfolio today.
Minister Chandima Veerakodi assumed duties today at the Ministry of Skills Development and Vocational Training amid the blessings of Mahasangha.
We cannot create employment, but we have to train people to match the requirement that is available outside the country as well as within the country. In achieving targets that we expect in technical education, we have to entrust a task to the Education Ministry. So I would request the Ministry of Education to get ready for that, and also at the same time, I'm committed to find out where the opportunities are available outside this country or within the country.
Meanwhile, Minister Chandima Veerakodi went on to speak about the country's petroleum resources, which fell under his purview for the past 2.5 years.
We were able to convert Ceylon Petroleum Corporation as a profit-generating institution, achieving close to 80 billion profit last year. And our Ceylon Petroleum Storage Terminal also recorded a historic profit of 2.5 billion. And with regard to oil exploration, which is again the future of this country, we have always fought to retain control of energy within the government. I strongly believe any country should be in a position to decide on energy requirement by the country, and that should not be allowed to be decided by any outsider.
On to business news now. Minister of Public Enterprise Development Kabir Hashim says that the government is planning to call a second round of bids for Sri Lankan Airlines as the search for an investment partner continues. He made this revelation responding to questions raised by journalists at a media briefing in Colombo today.
Sri Lankan Airlines
is of utmost importance to us, but it was one of our biggest loss makers. When we came to power, some asked whether we'd sell it. We said that we'll have to bury it due to its heavy indebtedness. Then we commenced a program to revive it through an investor that could join the government for a joint venture. We called for a first round of bids, which wasn't too successful. We are currently in talks with a few world-class investors. We believe that we will be able to save Sri Lankan. Moreover, there are a number of state corporations that make losses. We have taken measures to change this during the past 1.5 years.
In international business news, China has received a downgraded on its credit score on worries about the future state of its economy. In a first Chinese credit card in 25 years, Moody's reduced long-term local currency and foreign currency issuer ratings by one notch to A1 from AA3. China's finance ministry said Moody was exaggerating its economic difficulties and underestimating reform efforts, but the agency said that the downgrade reflected expectations that China's financial strength would erode somewhat over the coming years, with the economy-wide debt continuing to rise as potential growth slows. The downgrade could raise the cost of borrowing for the Chinese government and came alongside a change of outlook for China to stable from negative. On to the stock market now. Colombo Bourse gained grounds today, driven by foreign inflows to premier blue chip John Keel's holdings, while market turnover touched a first 5-week high of 3.6 billion rupees. The ASPI closed a 21.71 index points higher at 6,711.67, while the S&P SL20 index surged 24.44 index points at 3,846.10. For more details of today's trading, here is Imeshi Fernando from the Colombo Stock Exchange.
The market capitalization at the end of the day was 2,969.05 billion rupees. Top 5 gainers of the day were PC Pharma, Amana Takaful, People's Merchant, Bedwell Resorts and Swarnamahal Financial Services. The top 5 losers were SNB Leasing, non-voting, Paragon, Blue Diamonds, non-voting, Black Lanka Finance and Ramboda Falls. Today's foreign purchases were 1.4 billion rupees and foreign sales were 536.63 million rupees. There were 10 crossings today and the crossings turnover was 2.9 billion rupees.
And the weekly Treasury bill auction held today, yields declined in the 6-month maturity by 2 basis points to 10.40%, while yields of 3-month and 12-month T-bills remain unchanged at 9.62% and 10.73% respectively. Meanwhile, the Sri Lankan rupee ended slightly strong in dull trade today as 2 foreign banks sold dollars through traders. As they say, the currency is set to ease further on dollar demand from importers and a central bank moved to buy the greenback to boost reserves. Rupee forwards were active with spot next forwards closing at 152 rupees to 80 to 90 cents per dollar compared to Monday's close. Now here's a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other currencies during the day today. Sports news is on the other side of this break. Stay with us. Welcome back, everyone. Earlier today, Sri Lanka picked up their 3rd win in Group 3 of the Sudiram Cup in Australia, beating Slovakia 5-0. The Lankan shuttlers won in the men's and women's singles and doubles events and also in the mixed doubles. Sri Lanka also beat Fiji 5-0 on one-on-one of the tournament and went on to beat Tahiti with the same score on day 2. Unbeaten in a single game so far, Sri Lanka will face Macau in the finals of Group 3 tomorrow in a match that will decide promotion into Group 2. In cricket news, the ICC last evening confirmed the squads which will be taking part in the ICC Women's World Cup in 2017 to be staged in the United Kingdom from the 24th of June to the 23rd of July. Sri Lanka will field a squad of 15 players, including 8 who feature in the 2013 World Cup, with left-arm orthodox bowler Inoka Ratnavira taking up the captaincy. Sri Lanka have been drawn in Group A with India, Ireland, Zimbabwe and Thailand. International news is on the other side of this break. Stay with us. Welcome back, everyone. On to international news. The United Kingdom has announced that its threat level is now critical, its highest level, suggesting that an attack may be imminent. Soldiers have been deployed to key sites across the United Kingdom today following UK Prime Minister Theresa May's announcement.
British Prime Minister Theresa May said that the Joint Terrorism Analysis Centre, which sets the threat level in the United Kingdom, recommended the move.
It has now concluded, on the basis of today's investigations, that the threat level should be increased for the time being from severe to critical. This means that their assessment is not only that an attack remains highly likely, but that a further attack may be imminent. The change in the threat level means that there will be additional resources and support made available to the police as they work to keep us all safe.
22 people were killed and at least 64 were wounded on Monday in a suicide bombing at the Manchester Arena indoor venue after a concert by US pop singer Ariana Grande. Manchester Arena remains cordoned off by police, who identified British-born 22-year-old Salman Abdi as the perpetrator of the attack. Manchester police have made 3 more arrests, including that of Abdi's brother, and UK Home Secretary Amber Rudd said that Abdi was not likely to have acted alone. Floral tributes for the victims were laid at St Anne's Square in the centre of Manchester.
US President Donald Trump held talks with Pope Francis today on a first foreign trip that has already seen him visit the homes of America's 2 other major religions. The meeting came after cordial talks with Saudi Arabia and Israel, but pressure on the US president is growing back home as ex-CIA Chief John Brennan told the House Intelligence Committee that the investigation into links between Russia and the Trump campaign is well-founded. US media reports that Trump has appointed a lawyer to represent him in the inquiry.
US President Donald Trump met with Pope Francis, one of his most high-profile critics, at the Vatican today, and the pair spoke in private before exchanging gifts. While Trump gave the Pope a box set of writings by Martin Luther King, the Pope gave the US President a small sculptured olive tree symbolizing peace. The Pope also gave Trump a signed copy of the message he delivered at the last World Peace Day and 3 of his major writings, including his 2015 encyclical on the need to protect the environment. However, pressure on the US president intensified further yesterday as former CIA Director John Brennan testified before the House Intelligence Committee.
I encountered and am aware of information and intelligence that revealed contacts and interactions between Russian officials and US persons involved in the Trump campaign.
And that is a part of your world tonight right here on Other Derana 24/7. Our news at 9 will return tomorrow at the same time with Indivriya Moatha. Be sure to join us then. And before we go tonight, we like to take you to China, where a Japanese art collective, Team Lab, unveiled their first exhibition in China this weekend, bringing colorful interactive art installations to Beijing. Visitors are able to explore a digital garden of floating flowers and forest animals, as well as crystal universe of interactive light sculptures. Thank you very much for joining us. Good night.
Information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.